Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, I had a voice for radio. So today, it is my pleasure to say Happy Pokémon Day. It is February the 27th, and that has been arbitrarily stated to be Pokémon Day. Let's celebrate by talking about Mimikyu. Now, Mimikyu is one of probably the most popular Pokemon from the recent Pokemon Sun and Moon games. Everybody loves him. He's got a new card, and you know what? It could be pretty gosh darn good. Now, he has only got 70 HP, which is very, very low, but on the upside, it does mean he is searchable with Level Ball. The fact that he's a basic is good because it means you can search for him with Nest Ball. It means that he can use Fighting Fury Belt, although that will still only put him up to 110 HP, so maybe instead you choose to use Choice Band, which allows his attacks to do 30 more to EXs or GXs. And an absolutely crucial thing here is that he does have access to Max Elixir. More on why that is so important in a moment. The fact that he has no weakness is pretty cool, but kind of irrelevant given that he's got 70 HP. Now, the fact that he is a psychic type means that things like Mega Mewtwo will be hit for weakness. I'm going to give a proper, specific example of that in a moment because it could turn out to be crucial for this particular card. And a retreat of 1, I don't usually mention retreat cost, but it's really handy here because his first attack is a setup attack. So you attach an energy, use a setup attack, and then you can retreat without having to dedicate any more energy to Mimikyu, which is important. Speaking of that first attack, it allows you to draw 2 cards. It's not a great attack. It is not an attack that you want to be using constantly every turn. But if you start with Mimikyu and there's nothing to do and you haven't got a good attack to use and you've got nothing in your hand of any value, that's when this is really, really crucial. Not amazing, but as a bonus on an otherwise playable card, it's very, very nice. Now, there's a very good chance you'll use this and your opponent will play an N, but if you're using this attack, you had nothing in your hand anyway, you would love to be end. Now, the second attack here is really what makes this card fairly good. It allows you for 2 energy to copy the attack your opponent used last turn. As long as they didn't use a GX attack, of course. As we've seen in the past with cards like Clefairy, Pokemon really doesn't want us using more than 1 GX attack per turn. Now, this should remind you of things like Zoroark Break, or even the earlier Black and White Zoroark, a card with which I got very familiar and had a fair bit of success. And the beautiful thing here is you don't have to pay the energy cost, with the current translation assuming it's not changed. That means that you can copy something like Mega Rayquaza's Emerald Break, and I think that is one of the best uses for this card, but instead of having to have 3 colourless energy, 1 colourless and a psychic. That's very, very nice indeed. Now, the major downside to this card is that it's in your opponent's control. If your opponent knows that you've got a Mimikyu on the bench with a couple of energy, or with the ability to get a couple of energy on there, they know that you're going to be able to use that to attack. So that means that they are going to try and plan it so that they use an attack which cannot really be used against them. They get a KO, but using an attack that, when copied by Mimikyu, will not get a KO on them. I hope that made sense. Now, sometimes they have very little choice. Go back to my Mega Rayquaza example. You basically kind of need to use Emerald Break. That is what the deck relies upon. So maybe they don't have much of a choice there. Although, of course, we're always playing other cards. There's usually another choice. But what you really want to do with Mimikyu here is drop it as a surprise. And that's where Max Elixir comes in. Play Mimikyu to your bench, attach an energy, play a Max Elixir, and then attack out of nowhere. Your opponent wants to prepare so that they don't use an attack which Mimikyu can copy and use against them. So drop Mimikyu as a surprise, and it's too late for your opponent to have already taken evasive maneuvers. Now, Max Elixir isn't the only option here. If you're playing Lunala, you get to move Psychic Energy around, which of course you could move on to Mimikyu. Or if you want a really low rent version of that, you could even use Energy Switch instead. Heck, you could even use Golduck Break, although nobody's playing Golduck Break, like, at all. Now, this is one of these attacks where sometimes it will be amazing and sometimes it won't. I don't have the time in this video to go through every possible attack. What I am going to do is give you a couple of examples that show you how useful this attack can be when used under the right circumstances. So let's take a Mega Mewtwo. Let's assume he's using Psychic Infinity with just a double colourless energy. Now, Psychic Infinity does 30 damage for every energy attached to both active Pokemon, plus 10 base damage. So they've got a double colourless, you've got 2 energy attached to Mimikyu, 4 energy total means you do 130 damage. But of course Mega Mewtwo is weak to Psychic, so you actually do 260 damage, and you get a one-hit KO on a Mega Mewtwo on a basic non-GX, non-EX Pokemon. And Mega Mewtwo is still a very widely played deck, which is seeing an awful lot of success. That could be fun. Want another example? How about something like the aforementioned Mega Rayquaza? They are going to be using Emerald Break, they're going to have Skyfield in play, and they're going to be wanting to get one-hit KOs on everything. So you can use their Skyfield against them. And as long as you can get 8 bench Pokemon, or with a Fighting Fury belt you would only need 7 benched Pokemon, and don't forget you could also use Choice Band or Professor Kukui to make it do more damage, then you are getting a one-hit KO on Rayquaza. Use their Skyfield to get 7 bench Pokemon down, get a Fighting Fury Belt on Mimikyu, and for 2 energy you're getting a one-hit KO on a Mega EX that gives up 2 prizes, with a non-EX that gives up 1. And then you put your opponent in the really awkward position that they've either got to KO the Mimikyu, which has kind of already done its job, while ignoring your main attackers, or go after your main attackers knowing that Mimikyu could bite them again in the future. This is very, very fun. I don't think Mimikyu is going to be a deck on his own, but if you're in a deck which is playing basic Psychic Energy, and that is crucial because it's not a colourless attack, and you're playing something like Max Elixir or Lunala or Energy Switch anyway, this could be a really, really good tech, because you can drop this on turns when your opponent isn't expecting it, take 2 prizes, or really take away their main attacker, and all with a 70 HP basic. I like Mimikyu as a tech, and I am fairly confident that at some point before this rotates out of legality for standard tournament play, we are going to see it teched into a deck and win some games. So a potential really good tech which is slightly awkward because of having to play Psychic Energy. This is classic free Wassy territory. I think you should have a couple of these in your binder, ladies and gentlemen, because they could be pretty gosh darn good when Guardians Rising drops at the beginning of May. Now, you know the deal, ladies and gentlemen. There is a comment section. Go nuts, be nice. There are buttons to both like this video and subscribe to this channel. I would be delighted if you would use them both. You can follow me on Twitter @TheWassy, and the most important thing as always is to look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.